This podcast is brought to you by Steede Motor Group, Claregalway. For your personalised vehicle shopping experience, find out more at steedemotorgroup.ie.
So, joined now by former Knockmore senior football coach Alan Molloy and former Galway footballer Padraic Cunningham and current Hereford footballer Padraic Cunningham. Porky, had a good start to the junior championship anyways at the weekend?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we come up against a tough physical battle against Athenry, but yeah, it was nice to come up on top and get 2 points.
What's it like, I suppose, playing junior now after dropping down last year?
Yeah, it's obviously it's a drop in grade. It's unfortunate what happened last year to us. Probably our own worst enemies, but yeah, look, it's a stepping stone. Hopefully, it'll develop a lot of young players into our team and feed them through, and it'll be good for them to test themselves in adult football.
Alan, you're at your fair share of games over the weekend, you were saying?
Yeah, I was. Yeah. Thanks for having me on, Paul. Yeah, it's great to just not be have any kind of full involvement with anybody, and just be able to pick your weekends and pick the games out and see, could I make this and could I make that and will I make it back for that? So the games I picked out at the weekend was I live in Headford and very in between Annahdown and Carlastrand. I know a lot of the boys, so I went to Kenny Park to catch that double header, and then I left there to get to Headford for Headford and Athenry in the junior. And I was meant to catch one other game on the Friday night, the Dunmore Letchermore game. And to be honest, I wish I had. I changed my mind at the last second, and I ended up having a slight tip with my car, and I put that down to karma for changing my mind from going to that game in Tuam Stadium. So anyhow, nothing major, but a few hundred will fix it. But yeah, it's great, the club championship. Sure, I just love it. And next weekend it'll be hurling, and then it'll be kicking off in Mayo. So it's just going to matches, watching, learning, and just going and just watching, and not having to worry about how you're going to do anything about these teams, or you have to set up against these teams in a few weeks' time. So I love all that aspect of it.
Right in saying you made your co-com debut for over the weekend?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I was in Pearse Stadium on Friday night for Moycullen and on Spidia. It was a cracking game, to be fair. Moycullen are a strong outfit. I think they were missing players like Peter Cook, Sean Kelly. I think Jared Davern as well is missing. It's frightening to think the strength they have. They have some class footballers. They got the services of Johnny Mooney as well from Offaly, from Tullamore. He's a fabulous footballer. He breaks the line a lot for them. He has another dimension, I suppose, going forward for them.
How did you find the co-com?
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, no, I enjoyed it now, and I was kept well under control anyways by Tommy Devan, so it was grand.
Just on that, because obviously you seen Moycullen live at the weekend, 115-6. As you mentioned there, they look like they're getting stronger, and they really did issue a statement of intent there at the weekend.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, I was only kind of saying it afterwards. Put up a score of 119, it was probably missing 3, if not 4, of their best players, and their top players, and to come out with a score like that and set a statement like that. We were kind of wondering at the start, would they be shaky? How are they going to react to the game? And they came out, and I think they had 3 points on the board after 2.5 minutes. So they really stepped down. The big men stood up. Owen Gallagher, Niall Welsh, Desi Keneally in the forwards, brilliant. Then you had Paul Kelly doing the dogged work all through the game. It was really a statement of intent, I thought, from Moycullen, and I wouldn't like to be going into face them in the next round 2.
Neil Balls, Porrick, and Owen Gallagher, there really seems to be the 2 standout performers for them.
Yeah, Owen Gallagher I thought was brilliant. He picked up a lot of ball on probably about the 60-metre line. He drove at the heart of the defence constantly and delivered a ball inside. And then Neil Welsh was very good himself. He kicked some fabulous scores. The standout one was probably the second half, 15 minutes into the second half. It was into the breeze and outside the right boot, and beautiful low trajectory kick into the town end. It was a great score now, to be fair. And yeah, they move the ball around well. They're like, there's no play. Sometimes there'll be no play, and they'd keep moving. And I thought Owen Gallagher was a lot driving forward for them. He was a big asset for them going forward.
They really do already seem like, Alan, they're going to be one of the teams to beat already when you consider the players that were without at the weekend.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They've huge depth in the squad, and they've built up a huge amount of experience now. They have huge physical size, and they have depth in their squad and depth in their management team. And I think winning a Connacht club title was very important in their progression, and they'll be looking to go further than that going forward.
You were with Knockmore, and as county champions, there's always this thing of managing your run, because you've been on the road for so long. That's what Moycullen are doing now. They don't want to peak too early, but they still want to be able to put in these performances. Is that a difficult thing when teams are hunting and chasing after you in this position?
Yeah, it definitely is. But I think the fact that there are a minimum of 5 teams and 2 of the groups have 6 teams in Galway, as opposed to in Mayo, there's 4 groups of 4, where you cannot really, like, Moycullen could lose a game in the group and it wouldn't be detrimental to them. But if you lose a group in Mayo with the 4 teams and you're on the back foot, you know, you kind of have to be at your best every day going out. But Moycullen, the one thing that they really have now is they have a huge depth of a squad, and that is going to be a major factor. That's going to be a major factor going down the line. I listened to your power rankings last week, and when Barry was, you know, talking about teams and the power rankings, you know, he was, an awful of what he said was tempered with, if such a one stays injury free and if such a one stays injury free. Moycullen are probably the best team to cope, best squad to cope with the few injuries. You know, that would be my feeling on them.
Was there a noticeable difference, Padraic, on Friday night between Moycullen last year and this year? It was still very similar.
Yeah, like they just looked like people say you lose hunger when you probably win a county title, or they won a Connacht title last year. You probably lose hunger of it. They look like hungrier than ever again. This is what the frightening thing was for me. I thought they were very good out of possession at turning over the ball in the middle third of the pitch, and that was a massive thing for Moycullen and getting scores on the board. It looks like they were as hungry as ever again, which is a worrying thing for a lot of teams that are in the county.
Padraic, as well, on Spidia, like, they're up against it at the minute. It's safe to say, with the squad and the pick they have, to lose 2 players like Liam O'Callaghan and Finian O'Lee, like, you feel like I'm referencing it every time when you mention on Spidia, but they're just 2 losses that a club like this can cope with.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. Like, Spidia, to be fair, couldn't give a real account for themselves on Friday night. They even lost, I think, Anthony O'Lee during the week before the game and everything. So I think on Spidia, they won't get bogged down too much about the game. They'll kind of say to themselves, our championship kind of starts now after playing Moycullen, being realistic. So they probably will just look to get probably as many lads on the pitch training, getting injuries, getting clean-up injuries, and try to. And I know obviously losing Liam Kelly and Finian O'Lee is a massive, massive loss to any club team, not mine, on Spidia.
Liam O'Connell, Padraic, he showed in patches why he was drafted into the Galway senior panel, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he was their standout player for on Spidia, I thought, on Friday night. He drove at the Moycullen defence when he could in the first half. I know he was going into a strong enough old win, but he was actually a bright spark for them. I'd say going forward, they'll probably look to get the ball to him more, or utilise him a bit more in the later rounds of the championship.
Game in Group A, Alan, you mentioned you're at it in Kenny Park, Annahdown, St. James. St. James is coming out on top.
Yeah.
8 points to 1-4. It was by no means a classic, really.
No, it wasn't a classic, no. But I mean, I can be fascinated sometimes by low scoring games and how they manage to achieve that and all of that. But I just think that maybe Annahdown deserved to draw, missed a few frees at the end. I know James has missed a few frees as well. But just the last 10 minutes, I just felt that I kind of could feel that James's believed more that they could shade this by a point, and I don't think Annahdown believed it. I just, for whatever reason, and yeah, it was a fascinating game in a lot of ways, but for me, I just think I know a lot of the Annahdown lads. You know, they taught some of them in Headford, but I was just writing down today, out of the last, Annahdown are going to have to rebuild, and I was just writing down today that they've lost the three Cairns brothers. They've lost Kieran Duggan, Conor Maloney, Conor Scully, and Owen Reddington. Now those three of those players are out and out midfielders, and some of them have played inter-county. So they're a huge loss to Annahdown. I don't know what's coming to replace them, out or underage and all that, but it could be a difficult group campaign for Annahdown. But in fairness to Alan Glynn, if he gets the time now he has 2 weeks now to really kind of knuckle down, work together, and get a kind of an attacking plan where they can at least score enough that they're able to defend to see the game out. You're not going to win a game scoring 1-4, and they just need to really go after that, I think. But again, they have lost so many players that they're in a time of where they just get a win from somewhere. But the most time you're back against them is the most time that they will grab a win like that. And just further on that game, James's have some real good young lads coming. But I thought Johnny Duane, now I'm by no means an expert on all the personnel playing clubs in Galway, but I think Johnny Duane there really showed massive leadership for James's the last day. And the younger lads around them responded to it, you know. And also the number 11, I think he's Nolan.
Yeah, Jack Nolan kicked some terrific scores.
He did off his left, but also in the first half, the ball was kicked into him in the first half, and he was very unlucky not to secure it, or maybe not to get it free, but it popped up out of his hand. It was very difficult conditions between wind and rain, and it ended up in the back of the net down the far side. Damien got a brilliant goal, great long ball into Damien, and took on his man in and buried it in the bottom corner. It was a great goal. But I think that young Jack Nolan, then he came out of the second half, he was like a man possessed, because he was probably thinking, if I'd only held on to that ball, and he kicked the scores. I thought Sam O'Neill showed great leadership at the end as well, stepped up, kicked that score at the end that really ended up being the last score of the game, I think, if I'm right. And they definitely have young lads around the place that you know, are well into it and will track up and down that pitch. And but I still thought just maybe Annahdown maybe deserved a draw out of it. But if you only score 1 point in the second half, you know, so for me, Annahdown, it's all about just getting some forward play going and lads getting to know each other and trying to create some activity up front that's going to lead to a lot more scores. I think defensively they looked fairly solid, but it's that getting from attack to defence, or from defence to attack, and kicking enough scores to win a game. That's really where it's at now for Annahdown. That was that game.
Similar to Alan Board, you obviously know a lot of the Annahdown lads. Is their problem, and it probably has been over the last few years, Frankie Burke obviously and Damien Comer getting the majority of the scores, but scores just coming outside of that. Is that why they're struggling at the minute?
Yeah, like it'd be along them lines. Like you look at what how Annahdown do. You're usually looking at how Damien Comer, what he kicks, or what Frankie Burke kicks for them. I think, like more as Alan says, going forward, they just need to get lads attack and play more, develop more, get up and forward, and like lads need to start backing themselves probably more, develop. Like you're not going to get better by training twice a week with your team. You probably need to go down yourself, go to the pitch, start kicking scores. Like it's something you can do yourself in your own time. Probably for Annahdown, you do think that they need to just rail in together now and become a tight-knit group and just try and pick up points on the boards. Like go down, work on attack and play, a lot of attack and play for them. As Alan said, like 1-4 is never going to win you a championship game, unfortunately.
Is that hard now, Padraic, when there's a lot of negativity around Annahdown at the minute, because this was a game they're expected to win? Is it hard now to turn this around, do you think, for them?
No, I don't think it is. I think it is a great bunch of lads up there. Like I think they can rail in together and they'll put their heads down. And to be fair, they're not men that's like they would leave no stone unturned. They do train hard. They go to the gym. They're all top men in regards to their disciplinary to the GA. So I do feel like if they rail in together, sit and probably put their heads to it, they could turn it around for Annahdown.
And as you mentioned there, James's Alan, like even when we were doing the power rankings, we were talking in previous years, James's have showed inconsistencies where they're on and off, but it just felt something was different on Saturday about the character they showed.
Yeah, I think they grew into the match, really. I think they kind of showed a bit of belief, you know, and of course the wind, they knew they were having whatever wind was in it in the second half. And yeah, they definitely did, yeah. And they had lots of energy going forward. They weren't afraid to make a mistake going forward was probably what I would say. They'll be delighted with that result. I would say. I'd say they'll be absolutely delighted to get the 2 points on the board there. Yeah, and Johnny Dwen with the leadership as well. I mentioned it before. It was very important when you have a lot of young lads around the place. It's very important that you have a calm head. And even at one stage, I noticed James were attacking on the left-hand side of the pitch, and Johnny Dwan came from deep and came into the line. And if James's player had spotted him, he was just bearing down on the D. It was just a pop hand pass over the Annahdown defender. And Johnny wasn't happy that he didn't get it, you know. But yeah, they grew into the game. They showed massive energy and they stayed calm and they kicked their scores. And yeah, that's basically it for James's. I see Barry had them at 13 in the power ranking there, and
yeah. They've moved up a bit. I think everyone's going to be fascinated to see where Michael's there this week. After much of the league last week.
I thought Barry was harsh on Michael's now.
Yeah, I think everyone thinks that.
Yeah,
I think got a bit of slating for that now, right?
Did he? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Michael's, to me, have obviously worked on defending correctly and breaking out at massive speed, and that's from listening to the game the last night that I meant to go to it, and I didn't go to it, but just from listening to it on the radio like that, when they broke up attacks, they were attacking in 4s and 5s, and they have a few nice young players that have played underage with Galway, and they have a few old heads as well. So I thought Barry's power ranking on Michael's was harsh. Now I'd have them up 4 or 5 or 6 spots, no problem.
Yeah, no, they do make a big jump anyways this week. The power rankings obviously out later today. Just on the other game in that Group A, Middletown just getting over the line against Letchermore and in by 2 points, 11 points to 9 board.
Yeah, so I only got a brief report on this game. No, I didn't hear anything on it, but yeah, like the wind probably played a big factor in this game. It was in Pearse Stadium, so you can imagine the wind was blowing from the left to right there, and you're looking out at it, and it was just straight down. I'd say it was a game of definitely 2 halves. Middletown kicked off, went off into an early lead. I think there were 7 points to 3 up at half time, and pushed on, and it looked like Letchermore were coming back into it and going to level going into the last 4 or 5 minutes. But Middletown kicked the last 2 scores. I think they won at 11-9. It's a massive win, a good start for Middletown. There is a young team there. There's a lot of old experienced heads, but there is a lot of young lads there coming through, like the likes of Niall Costello. Liam Costello is probably one of the more experienced players there now, and Owen Mannion in the corner forward. Like, it's a good team. They'll be delighted to get 2 points on the board. And for Letchermore, they were probably just unlucky. I know Mattis Barrett wasn't available for them. He's still travelling. Hopefully they'll try to have him back for the next round. But Letchermore just have to put their heads down now and build forward for round 2.
Where do you see Middletown Borwick, like in regards, because you mentioned there's a young team and they are trying to balance it, but there seems to be a good balance there at the minute too.
Yeah, there sure is. I was up in I went to see them play in a league game against Annahdown. I was very, very impressed with them. into terms
I
of.
was beside you that night.
Yes, actually, yeah, he was residing that night. But I was actually very impressed with that night. It looked like Annahdown had got a run on them, and then they kept going, kept keeping the scoreboard ticking. Then eventually just got back into the game. I think they drew it in the end. I was very impressed with their forwards that day. Like they all backed themselves to score. Then they have Mark Hare coming in, who's a comfortable free taker. Mike Martin, and then they had I would obviously there's the crop of the top 4, maybe 5 at the moment that we all kind of look to, like the Corofin, Moycullen, Mountbellew and Moylough, and Salt Hill. But they're not far off that, but they probably still believe themselves there is another 20-25% of them to get up to that level.
They probably even are after the Annahdown result as well at the weekend, Alan. Within Middletown, they're already eyeing the 2nd spot now.
Absolutely. I tell you, I was very impressed with Middletown's forward play in the league, that league game against Annahdown that night. It was a cracking game of football, to be honest. It was so enjoyable. But they have 4 or 5 forwards that they only know one thing, and that's take on their man and go at the goals. And they have a lot of pace. Now that was a summer's night, hard ground, hot evening, the whole lot. I think they'll cause a lot of teams a lot of problems. They have Jack Cran then. Is it Jack Cran? Yeah.
Yeah, Jack Cran, yeah.
Yeah, Jack Cran then coming from deep. And they had a very young fullback that night as well, and he was good. He's
Terence Godwin, yeah.
Yeah, Terence Godwin. And they had just seemed to have a good blend of youth and pace and direct football, really suited to summer, so as the ground stays hard, there's plenty of running and that, I think they will cause a lot of problems. Again, squad depth, if 2 or 3 of their key men were to get injured at the same time, like most clubs, then that's when they're going to be tested.
It does already feel like Letchermore obviously coming up short. It was probably a game they were targeting there. But like as Padraic does mention, like Matches Barrett to come back into that fold definitely will strengthen things. But that was probably a game they were eyeing up to get over the line.
Letchermore.
Yeah,
of course, yeah. No, definitely that was one they would have their eye on. But I suppose this time of the year, it's amazing. If you go around to all of the clubs, like seem to have 2 or 3 fellas away at the moment. I just think the extra game or 2 in the Galway Championship just allows you to, for that first game, if 1 or 2 are away, it's not going to make you or break you. And of course, when he comes back, you give them a massive boost,
So that group stands at the minute. Moycullen top spot on 2 points, superior goal difference. Middletown second on 2. James is third on 2, and then Annahdown fourth. Ivana Letchermore fifth, and Spittle bottom place at the minute. Annahdown, Letchermore, and Spittle all sitting on 0 points from the opening round. Group 2, probably the performance of the weekend really. Corofin 3-10. So 10 on Cara 6 points. Padraic, they've issued a statement of intent. Corofin are well and truly back.
Yeah, definitely. I was last week. No, I was doing a preview show with Barry, and I was saying they're probably the dark horse team for me. I think just getting players like Liam Silk was away for the inter-county season. He's back now. Ciara Molloy back, fully fit again. Then you have the likes of Jason Leonard. Jack McCabe was absolutely outstanding for them. Then you have Ian Burke to come into that fold. Like it's a team there that's looking like it's brewing and building to be someone that's going to give Moycullen a good rattle.
Jack McCabe at the weekend there, you mentioned him. Some people would have heard of him, but there probably is people in Galway who didn't hear him at the weekend and comes along and scores 1-3.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. That's the beauty about Corofin. You might not hear something about some player, and then they come in, score 1-4, 1-5. They go, "Who is this fella?" But to be fair to them, they've been known for doing it. They've done it for years and years. They've had players after players like that for them. So like it's not really a surprise, I'd say, to Corofin, or it's not really a surprise to anyone in the county at the moment.
I presume, like everyone else as well, Alan, you were impressed with them over the weekend.
Yeah, I was. I obviously I wasn't at that game, but it was a good friend of mine at it who does a lot of analysis of games and stuff. And he just said they looked like well, he said a number of things, but in terms of Corofin, he said that they were really, really ruthless. They got 2 goals right at the beginning. Very early on, they were so ruthless. They kept the scoreboard moving then. And he said they just looked to have a real proper blend of youth and experience that were gelling very, very well together. But then on the other side of that, he just says to me that the report I got there was that he just didn't know how, like, had Salt Hill kind of, were the shadow box and did not want to show their hand. We know they were missing players and all of that. But I think that anyone who thinks that Salt Hill won't be around in the later stages could be very wrong, because
Is this a good thing to happen early on in the championship, because it's so fixable with the way the group is formatted?
I definitely think for Salt Hill, it definitely is a very good thing to happen early, because also it focuses minds in management and it focuses minds in players, and it probably strengthens the connection between coaches and managers and players when coaches and managers are saying we need to do more of this or we need to do more of that. Well, the evidence is there because we just got blown off the pitch by Corofin with a lot of young players. So yeah, if this is going to happen, it needs to happen early. It happened to us in 2021, and I tell you, we were different. We used it to our strengths, and we were a different team after it. You can only have one slip up, and in the Mayo Championship, there's only 4 teams in the group. So definitely early on is when you want these things to happen and take the learnings out of them and really get to the pitch and work on those things. And it'll stand you in good stead then for the rest of the championship.
Especially the manner Padraic Salt Hill conceded the goals, like it was, particularly from a defensive perspective, very easy for Corofin.
Yeah, it sure was. Like, we can't obviously. I know it's the first game, and I don't really want to be talking down on them. I think Salt Hill were missing too many key players, to be honest, going into the game. Like the likes of Rob Finnerty is a massive asset to Salt Hill going forward. All their forward play kind of goes through him. He's their main link man, I suppose. John Maher then was a massive loss as well in the middle of the field. Like, when you take 2 massive players like that out of a Salt Hill team, I think it comes back to, it kind of says to me they were kind of nearly saying it was just shadowing, but that doesn't take away from the class of Corofin in the game. They obviously got their goals early, kept the scoreboard ticking. They are like, they will be very impressed with that. But I think for Salt Hill, it's just about, as Alan said, getting down to the training field now and putting the heads down and working hard, I suppose.
With the return of Ciarán Molloy, it allowed Dylan McHugh to go to midfield, and it's not really something we've seen, but it's like Dylan McHugh definitely does seem like that player is comfortable to play in the middle of the park. Yeah,
definitely. He looks like a player that's comfortable playing any of the middle of the section parts of the field, like in the half back line, half forward line, midfield. He looks comfortable. He is very comfortable on the ball. He seems to make a lot of, even if it's just an easy pass, he makes sure it's 100% of a pass. Like, he's a footballer that plays the game very knowledgeable. Like, I really enjoy watching him play as well, because I think he is a very talented footballer.
And you mentioned already, Padraic, you think Corofin are truly going to be there this year?
Yeah, I sure do. I think they're going to come back into the fold. I think I still do see Mountbellew and Oughterard as well having a say in it, but it is going to be one of the top 4 teams for me that will come out of that. I think that will probably be lifting the county championship at the end. Corofin just looked more dangerous. They look hungry, and Kevin Johnston would have implanted his game plans and his systems on them by now, and he has a knowledgeable help of Brian Silk there as well. So they're a team to be feared at the moment, I think.
Alan, you were at the game on Saturday, Group B, between Oughterard and Galway.
Yep.
For the first 50 minutes, I was like, this is all too easy for Oughterard, and then Galway come with these 3 late goals. They don't score any points from play. Just a bit of madness. But I know Jared nearly threw that victory away, but I was really impressed with them at the weekend.
100%. It was the kind of the weirdest finish to a game I think I've ever seen. And you know, I was watching it there. There was 3 minutes to go. I was at it. It was 3 minutes to go. I needed to get to the car to get to Headford for the junior match. I didn't want to get caught in traffic, so I started working up to the gate up in Kenny Park. It was 12 points to 2. It was, I don't know, minute 56 or 57 or something like that. And ball floated into the square, ends up in the Oughterard net. And then I wanted to go, so I left. And by the time I got to the car and turned on the radio, there was another one gone in. And it was just really, really weird. But on your point about Oughterard, I was very impressed with Oughterard, because I saw them playing Headford in the league earlier on in the year. And actually, probably Headford should have won that game. They were very unlucky not to get anything out of it. You know, they had a few chances at the end. But Oughterard were ultra defensive that day. And I just wondered, what were they going to do in the championship? But Alan Murphy, and I know him, he'd be shrewd and he'd have the great soccer background and having managed soccer teams. I'm sure he has looked at the fixtures and decided which are the games where they're going to play a certain way and be more expansive and really try and score enough to win a game, and what are the games where he needs to keep the score down for as long as possible and stay in the game. I'm sure he's all that homework done. And to me, looking at that game the last day, I was extremely impressed with Oughterard's attacking play, especially the amount of deep runners that were coming from the back. Like, I think two of the Carlistrand full forward line, I think in the first half they had to track their men to the edge of their own D 3 or 4 times in that first half. And Oughterard got scores. Oughterard should have had 2 goals in the first half, 2 brilliant saves by Ian Aban.
Crossbar as well.
Yeah, point blank 1v1s. It could have easily been 2-6 or 2-7 at half time. But Oughterard, to me, and Barry alluded to this when he was on the power rankings, that it's Alan Murphy's 3rd year in the management, and obviously they're happy, and obviously they're comfortable in their own schemes and what way they need to play for certain games. They all know their roles, which way they have to play and what their role now involves. And I was very, very impressed with their attack and play from deep and their runners, and they had a lot of energy. On the other side of that, Carlistrand have a new management in, finding their feet, trying to find a style of play. And like, it actually, in preparation for this evening, I know, like, here in the Headford, Carlistrand, Annahdown area, the amount of players that have gone. But I just made a list today of the amount of Carlistrand players that have played senior championship in the last 2 years that are now gone. Rory Glynn, Shane O'Brien, Alan Morris is injured, Eric Monaghan transferred, Oisin O'Brien gone, Cian Darcy gone to Dublin, Shane Nally gone, Gary O'Neill, Stephen Riley, Joey Mahan, Brendan Murphy, Barry Lee, Rory Connor Faulkner, and I don't know did Cormac Band play in the last 2 years, but they have lost all of those players. So there's 2 ways they can look at this now. They can chuck in the towel, which I know they won't do, or the players that are there now and the young lads coming through can step up and find a way for them to get points on the board. I suppose if they can start the next game the way they finished the last one, it'll leave them, you know, in a good place in that game, and whatever happens after that. But they just for me, I would have to give Oughterard a lot of credit for the way that game panned out. For 57 minutes, I thought they were outstanding. They have a few lads. The 2 cornerbacks want to come up the pitch and join in. The wing forwards are full of running. I'm sorry, now I don't know them all by name, but I know a few of them. And because I haven't been at many club games in Galway over the last 4 years, but they just really have threats coming from everywhere. They're nice kickers of the ball. They can shoot from distance. They're blessed with, I think, the 2 or 3 goalkeepers. that can come out and play out the field. At least they did the night they played Hereford in the league. They had fellas that could come out and make the extra man. So yeah, Oughterard for me, that game was a lot about what Oughterard really did well against an inexperienced Carlostrand team. But we all know what Carlostrand can do when you write them off, and they could catch a couple of teams yet in this group, you know. So yeah, that was the second game there. It was weird, 12 points to 3-2, and I think they missed a fairly close in chance as well. They could have drawn it, you know.
The losses there, like they've obviously lost players this year for Carlostrand, but then when Alan names out that list, like it's a huge amount of significant players.
Yeah, it is. It's a massive gulp of their squad they've lost there. Like and as Alan said, the big thing for me, it's a new management in. He's trying to employ, probably trying to find a system that he's trying to play for them and play with them, suit them. Yeah, look, it was a tough game for Carlostrand. Obviously, the scoreboard probably doesn't say it in terms of. I was speaking to anyone that said Oughterard were well impressive, and that the scoreboard nearly was. It was a crazy ending. But yeah, look at Carlostrand. Like as Alan said, Carlostrand will never die. They'll put every single one of them be down, itching a training. They can imagine it, putting their hearts into it again, trying to get 2 points on the board in round 2.
Will it be in the back of their minds just about survival this year and try and cement their senior status, Paul?
Yeah, I can imagine they probably won't like me saying it as a Hereford man, but I'd say that they are looking at just trying to survive and probably get another year of experience into some players. Like I know they've some a young forward, Kieran Donlan there. I know I've seen him playing under 19 a few times, and he's a fabulous footballer. And I seen him actually in the junior game for them against Annahdown, and he's electrifying. Like he gets the ball, he turns, he takes on his man, he's direct, he goes for goal. I think they probably want to get a year's experience into him. Same with a lot of players I know. So, and then obviously the likes of Johnny McGrath steering at the back. I think they should be able to secure senior status again.
Yeah, I think it was 3 under-19s that met up their forward line: Adam McGree, Kieran Donlan, and Keane Molloy. So like that's half your forwards. It's a big thing. Yeah. One of the performers that caught my eye actually for Gerard Allen, Eric Lee at 11, very impressive at the weekend.
Very impressive. Yeah. As I was saying to you, I don't know them all to look at. I need the program in front of me, but he was very impressive. He led the line well, caught a few balls, set up a few scores. But I just thought that they looked like a team. I just thought they all knew what they were doing and coming from all over the place. And like it's interesting there, you know, Padraic mentioned Kieran Donlan, but the cornerback that was on Kieran Donlan was running back the way for most of the first half, trying to cope with him, you know. So they had such a threat coming from every place. And then of course they have the lads to come back from America as well. So yeah, Oughterard are definitely moving in the right direction. Definitely moving in the right direction. Lots of pace all over the team as well.
Yes, so Corofin and Oughterard they're joint top at the minute, 2 points each. The other game, Pork, was a draw between Killannon and Berna, and I think Killannon are really going to regret this when you consider they missed the penalty where James Kane saved us, and then both teams shared the spoils. Yeah,
definitely. Probably, I think Killannon were missing their free taker. Keane Folan, was he? I think he wasn't playing at the weekend for them. Like he was going into the game. That's probably a big loss, losing your free taker. Johnny Heaney missed one penalty, and then he scored another, I think, as well. So yeah, they'll probably be kicking themselves. They didn't come out with 2 points on the board, but probably at the same time we're happy. I think Barna had a chance late on to win the game, and they'll be happy to get out of there with the point at the end, I'd say.
Where do you see both of those sides in relation to that group?
They're in, obviously, for me, I think Corofin and Oughterard will probably be the top two in terms of Corofin. Looks like the first, but I think then it's between them, Killannon and Berna. Well, Killannon, Berna, Oughterard and Carlostrand, there's a battle there for third on. Like probably the draw for both of them keeps them the hunt for third both alive for them. But for Oughterard, they'll be kind of saying to themselves they just want to try beat Killannon and Berna, and put in 2 good performances against the likes of Sawtill and Corofin. That's not saying they won't beat them either. Like I do believe I do read on. I think Oughterard are one of the most direct running teams, and I've never seen, even when we play them, like they have runners off shoulders all the time. I've never seen anything like it. It's brilliant. Like, and Alan Murphy has them well coached. But for Clannan and Barna, I think they'll both be eyeing up. They'll secretly be eyeing up that 3rd spot and trying to get it.
Yeah, it really is open, that 3rd spot there, Alan, isn't it? As Padraic touched on.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. It's an interesting group, all right. And it is. Anything could happen, and probably will as it goes on. And I actually love the format. I love the format of the extra game, would say, compared to the Mayo Championship, or the extra 2 games for the group of 6. I do. It's, you know, you have a chance to recover from if you have a bad day or a lot of injuries or something like that, and it makes it interesting. I think that group will go down to the wire for that 3rd spot.
Just something I want to bring you both in on here, before we move on to Group 3. Montbellew with a standout performance at the weekend. Corofin with a standout performance. Moycullen with a standout performance, and Sawtill are going to bounce back with Finnerty and Maigh. Is there a gap between them 4 and the rest at the minute?
I wouldn't so much call it. Well, yeah, it's probably a gap, but I wouldn't so much call it as a massive gap or anything. I do think them 4 teams have taken probably, they're probably at that 10% extra. They probably have more players coming through that are pushing, and they're a more established squad. I do see, though, the likes of Oughterard. Then there's like Claregalway as well. I know they were missing a few against Mountbellew, but then Tuam, yeah. Like I do think them teams are closing in on them, and I don't see as much of a gap as there used to be before, I suppose.
Do you see them teams coming in challenging them, Alan?
To quarterfinal, semi-final, I definitely do. Yeah, I think it comes back to depth of squad. We've touched on it a few times today, even when Barry was doing the power rankings. But I think, you know, what Moycullen and Sawtill and Mountbellew, Moylough and Corofin in particular have is, you can go down, you know, you can go right down to number 26, 27, 28, and you're getting either really good underage players that have come through your own ranks, or seasoned senior players that have, you know, done things and won things in the past. I think there's a small gap between the top 5 and 6, and then the next 4 or 5. And I think there's another little gap then between the last 3 or 4 that are going to be battling for against the relegation. But I think the depth of squad is a huge factor for any of these teams that's going to be in the top 4, because between injuries, holidays, going away, all of that stuff, you know, that's what it's going to come down to.
Yeah, it really is going to be interesting to see their teams close in on them, but it is so early yet in the championship. In Group 3, Montbellew comfortably really dispatched Claregalway. There was never really any stage where they were too worried. Just with Montbellew, for Barry McHugh is someone you've played with and I know you're friendly with him, but has Val Daly got something out of Barry McHugh that maybe other managers haven't? Yeah,
it looks like it. To be fair, like, you're going back probably the last even 2-3 years looking at Montbellew. I think Barry has been himself and Owen Finnerty have been their 2 marquee forwards for them. They seem to you go out and you say, all right, we have to mark Owen Finnerty and Barry McHugh, but they seem to always get on top of their men, do well. And to be fair to Barry, like, the 2 of them work together very well. Like, they feed off each other, and Barry is an unselfish player with the ball in terms of he'd always find the man in the best position. But on top of that, then he's probably one of the best boots in the senior championship on top of it. So for me, yeah, Barry seems to have got something out of him. The ability was always there with him. It was just about finding the right look, I suppose, for him that suited him.
What have you seen in his game that he has progressed?
What I really like about him is he always plays with his head up. Like, he'd be sole on the ball and he'd be always looking to see if there's a score on, if there'd be a pass on inside. And then on top of that, he can execute it so perfectly because he has a range of kicking off the ground from his hands, and it is really an ability that not many of the forwards have in Galway.
Alan, you slightly fancy Mountbellew.
I do, yeah, based on a couple of things. I think it's very hard for, we say for Moycullen to do back to back, and like winning a Connacht Club title and then come back. And hunger is a massive problem. It can be a massive problem. If you don't have real competition for places, and Moycullen do have real competition for places, so hunger may not be a problem, but it is their 4th year on the road, because they won in 2020, didn't win in 2021, won it in 2022, and now we're back to 2023. So they're 4 years on the road. I know they've added some quality from their own underage and whatever, but there's just something about Mountbellew. I mean, I had a friend at the game the last day, and we saw them in the flesh. We played them in 2020 at the end of COVID. We actually played Annahdown and we played Mountbellew and Moylough in two, like there were challenge matches down in Knockmore, but there must have been 2,000 people at them because, people just wanted to get out, hadn't done that again. And the physical size of Mountbellew, actually, I was talking to one of the Mountbellew players lately, and the night they came to play us, the first thing that I noticed was their physical size. They're huge men all over the pitch. And then I had a friend there. He was at the game in Tuam with Claregalway, and he said he just thought their physical size. He's not from Galway; he's from out of the county, and he says their physical size and their conditioning were the two most apparent things, and the squad depth that they have. So like, for example, like he was kind of raving about James Foley and is it Luke Donlan and a few more like that.
Leo Donlan,
yeah, Leo Donlan, yeah. So I just think I think they will be really thereabouts this year. I just think that depending on the day, there's certain days that suit them more. Their physical size, their conditioning, plus they'll be hurt about last year and not getting a second one. It's just going to be fascinating between those four teams that we've already talked about. And Val, Val will be driving them on. So yeah, it's fascinating, really, the different strengths of the four teams. But if Moycullen's hunger stays where it should be and where it could be, and as somebody said about James McCarthy the last day, a friend of mine said he played like he had no medals. And I think that's the key for probably Moycullen, that they're going to have to play like they have no medals. Because if they don't, I think Mountbellew will be there. I think Corofin, we know they can play like as if they have no medals after winning 3 All-Ireland club titles on the road, which is just an unbelievable achievement. But that's in their locker as well. And Salt Hill, when they get everyone back, and then maybe 1 or 2 to come out of the pack that would get to a semi-final. So it's really fascinating. It's really fascinating, the whole lead up to it. And I just love when the whole club scene is back. It really, really has me planning my weekends to be, well, how many matches can I get in,
Yeah, it's great as well around this time of year. Rumours have already started with different lads linked for transfers and stuff, which is great as well. But just on Mountbellew, Padraic, James Foley was obviously let go from the Galway panel in January. It was probably the first time from most people that they've seen him, but like 1-1 I think he finished with at the weekend, and I'd say within his own mind he's out here to prove a point.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's a fabulous footballer. I think his reading of the game is absolutely superb, and he's a driving forward. And then on top of that, then he's a brilliant eye for a goal and a brilliant boot to kick and score. I do agree with Alan in the sense Mountbellew are an awful dark horse. They're absolute giants of men, a lot of them. Then on top of it, they have the likes of Michael Daly, experienced footballer like that, going back close to full fitness at the moment. It's another massive addition. Then I know Infinity didn't play at the weekend for them. He'll be back probably round 2-3. Yeah, look, it's making for an exciting championship. James Foley, going back to him, obviously he will have a point to prove. He'll probably say to Padraic watch me and put me down for next year. So you can imagine a lot of them will be that way, and even for themselves, they'll just go out with a point to prove. I'd say they didn't like losing that county final last year, and probably lost it on a case where they didn't really show up on the day at all. So their hunger will be back as stronger than ever, I'd imagine.
Just on the other game in Group 3, Padraic, it was Michael's who just about got over the line against Dunmore McHale's in the end, 2-8 to 1-7.
Yeah, it was funny. It was last week. Barry was like to me, I was still in nappies when the time Dunmore used to play senior football, and I wouldn't know much about it. I wouldn't, to be honest. But from even just going around to the game on Friday night, they were all saying it's great to have Dunmore back playing senior football again. It's probably a tough one to take for Dunmore. That Tuam would probably be their second home. You have to probably look back through the years that Tuam was where they'd always play. They will be probably frustrated from losing the game, but to be fair, I seen Tygo Malley made a point blank save with a minute to go. I seen Dunmore will feel like they probably left it behind them, but Michael's our team, young, and they have the shade of experienced players like Dave Canaan, and they've then young players coming through, and then they've Eamon Brannigan to come back to the fold. I think Michael's are dark horse. They got to a semi-final last year, probably weren't, I think, or a quarter-final maybe, and they weren't too happy with their performance in that game. So they look to obviously push on, try to get another step further along the line for them this year.
Yeah, they definitely will have regrets. That penalty, probably similar to Killannon and Alan, but particularly for Dunmore coming up from intermediate. Like, if you get that first win in your game, there's massive momentum.
Yeah, no, like Dunmore are a club with huge tradition. I remember when I was playing myself with Knockmore, there was a very prestigious tournament in Ballina called the Shannon Medals, and Dunmore would always be down. Dunmore would have been, Tuam Stars would have come down, and there's a huge tradition down there, and it's great to see them back in senior football as well. But they went the whole way to. Did they go to the intermediate club final last year or semi-final?
They lost to Galway in the end.
Yeah, to Galway from Tyrone. So that was a long year, and then they're back, and now it's senior championship. They just need to get that first win under the belt. They've also, I was actually in the Ardree one evening there having a cup of coffee, and there was a Dunmore wedding on, and I just got talking to a few people I know down there, mostly through ladies football, but they were telling me that, there was a few lads going to Australia, one or two injured, one or two. So their squad is thinned. Yeah, and their squad is thinned out a little bit, and they're now up in senior football where it's, you don't really get too many second chances. So I think for Dunmore, they need to consolidate and try and get a win or two under their belt, and then kind of maybe express themselves in the last game or two if they can. But they probably would have targeted that game the last night, especially in Tuam, as Padraic was saying. They would have won a lot of big games in Tuam, even there in their run to the All-Ireland club final. So, yeah, it's tough. Second year too for, I don't know, is that the management, is that their second year in the management there? It's always, second year is always kind of a hard year. You have to come up with a few new ideas. You have to push on a few things. And if things start going wrong, you can come under pressure. But I think Dunmore, because of the tradition they have and the love of football, and that they'll figure it out, and be nice to see them surviving anyhow, because it's a football stronghold down there.
Padraic as well, Michaels will be happy with the way they finished that game, one day slotting away a goal in injury time. Yeah,
definitely they will. Look at it. I do think that is a tough group. Like, there's Mountbellew, Claregalway, Michaels, Tuam, and Dunmore. Like, it's 5 tough teams there on par with each other. So Michaels will be delighted to get up and run and get 2 points on the board. Now they can build for the second round. Like, they just have like probably try pick off a result maybe against Mountbellew, Tuam, or Claregalway. They won't fear going in playing any of them teams. Colm Tubman there is a young, enthusiastic coach. Like, he has a real good system going for himself in there, and the backroom team. But they won't fear anyone going into round 2, I feel, to be honest. So they will be delighted to get up and run and get 2 points on the board.
There go as well. We just didn't really touch on them in that group. they obviously came up short against Mountbellew, but like they're going to be, I'm sure that management team are just keen to get Jack Cuilinn and Nathan Granger back.
Yeah, definitely. Like I know they were missing a good few bodies there at the weekend against Mountbellew. So going in, obviously they had all the hope and optimistic of beating Mountbellew. But looking forward, they're probably saying we'd have taken that loss if that was our first game and try to move on now for the rest of the championship and lay down a mark and come out of that group.
Yeah, as well with that, Alan, it was Peter Dibley, their centre back, Darren Hennessy, their midfielders, both went off with hamstring injuries, so they were already under strength, and then to get 2 blows like that early on.
Yeah, I think Barry touched on it as well when he was doing the power rankings. He thought that, and he was right. I think he was right. He's a Claregalway man, but that was good to get that game done first. But probably they're trying to get through that game with no injuries. And unfortunately, that's not the way it turned out, because centre back and midfielder, as you mentioned them there, 2 key men for them, are now injured. But they have 2 weeks. They have the two or three boys that are in America to come back, and that their underage talent is just off the charts. But you know, there's clubs in Mayo that their underage talent is off the charts, and it doesn't always come through. And I think probably Claregalway going forward are going to have to look at that and see how do they turn that underage success. And I suppose there's no formula for it. Just keep trying things and you get success. But if it's to do with underage talent, then they're going to have, you know, many successful years. But getting underage talent into a senior setup and becoming competitive and getting to the last 4 and getting to finals, then that's a big challenge for them.
Have you ever worked together? Have you ever worked with Alan? Pork has ever been over any of your teams?
We're cousins. Yeah. We're cousins. Do you know
that? Yeah, no, I have. He's popped his head in a few of our sessions. Gave us a helping hand when we needed it. Yeah, his sessions are intense. I'll tell you that. There's a lot of blood flowing in it.
What's he like to coach, Alan?
Oh, he's good, very excellent leader. He'd want to brush up and taking penalties. That's the only thing he needs to do.
Yeah, Pork, you were getting tagged in a few penalties over the weekend.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, look at. I've heard enough about it now over the weekend. I think I just want to move on now from it, to be honest.
Well, that's all on our podcast for today. That's the opening round of the Galway Senior Football Championship. Intermediate and now get underway with the next round of action, and we'll have round 2. But that's all for today. Thanks for coming on, lads.